This
series.
conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ICG's Digital Academy webinar series. I'm Sally Alsop, the ICG committee member responsible for running our webinar program. For today's webinar, we are delighted to welcome Per Christiansen, a master trainer and co-founder of Lego Serious Play, and Julia Fabrizi, who is a certified practitioner of this method. Per Christiansen is currently a partner in Trivium, a Copenhagen-based consultancy. He joined Trivium in 2006. Per focuses on Lego Serious Play, and he delivers facilitator training programs and works directly with his own clients all over the world. Together with Robert Rasmussen, he is the author of the book Building a Better Business with the Lego Serious Play Method, published in July 2014. Julia Fabrizi is a qualitative market researcher, and we're proud to say a member of the ICG, who has been working in this field for more than 20 years. She loves to connect various disciplines and explore new fields in which qualitative research can be blended and infused. During this webinar, Per will explain the scientific foundations of the method, and Julia will take you through some interesting applications for qualitative market research, both business and consumer. As usual, we'll have a Q&A session at the end of Julia and Per's talk. So if those of you on webcam can raise your hand if you have a question, or if you prefer to remain anonymous, please type your question in the chat box and I'll read those out after the hand-raised questions. So we're really grateful to iPoint Research for sponsoring this webinar. iPoint Market Research specializes in research project recruitment and project management. Recruitment has always been at the heart of what they do. With a national reach, iPoint Research has just the right participants to ensure your project succeeds. They provide a level of service for both qualitative and quantitative research with the experience and detail that you deserve. It's never about them, it's about you and ensuring you are able to deliver your business and project goals. So, before I hand over to Julia and Per, here are our first webinars planned for you for the new year. So please make a note in your diaries, your 2022 diaries, to make sure that you've got a record of these. Don't forget that we're able to offer great value sponsorship opportunities with each of our webinars. Sponsorship normally costs £100 for a lot of exposure on our website, mailers and social media, and of course on the day. Please contact Lucy if you'd like to know more. So our speakers today are Julia Fabrizi of Almar Quality Research and Per Christiansen of Trivium. And I'm now going to hand over to Julia and Per.
Great, so I'm going to share my screen now. Can you see it?
That's great, we can see it, it's all clear. So I'll put myself on mute.
Great. So today I'm so happy to be here, and I thank so much Sally and Lucy for their curiosity. Once they read about my certification in Lego Serious Play, they were intrigued to know more about this method to be applied to qualitative market research. So before giving the floor to Per, and I'm so grateful he's with us today. He's my trainer, facilitator trainer. So it's fantastic to have him with us, giving his perspective and the foundations of the method. Before giving the floor to him, I would like to focus on some main theories used as a foundation for the method. And since I'm a psychologist, I was immediately intrigued about these solid foundations of the method. Think about Piaget constructivism. So we build knowledge structures based on our experience of the world. And so knowledge is not simply acquired as children do bit by bit, but constructed in coherent, solid frameworks called knowledge structures. So children build these structures based on their experience of the world. Constructionism of Papert is an extension of the theory of Piaget, and the learning happens when we actively construct something external to us. So constructionism applies to both children and adults, since it is a way of making formal, abstract ideas and relationships more concrete, visual, tangible, manipulative, and therefore readily understandable. And then also Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and his flow. Mihaly is one of the father of positive psychology, along with Martin Seligman. Unfortunately, he died recently, and he left a really important learning for all of us. In fact, positive psychology is a discipline interested in promoting the well-being of people living, starting from what is working and functioning well, rather than from the problems that the traditional psychology does. The flow process is designed, as you see here, so to be sure to propose different status of comfort as participants move through the process. And the challenges, so it becomes a kind of roller coaster experience. And in this way, the changes and long-term learning will take place, along with a deep feeling of accomplishment. What I love about this model is that flow happens when our competence and challenge are well balanced. So as you see here in the graph, there is a low level of skill that can bring to a lack of challenge brings to boredom, while challenges beyond our capacity create a sense of anxiety. So the model also shows how our personalities become more complex and competent as a result of experience flow. High point experiences, high quality of life, so bringing to well-being of people. And also long-term learning, because everything is internalized and easier to remind and be recovered after longer time. So now I would like Per to explain us the part related to the play. Who better than him can explain this? So I give you the floor, Per.
Thank you, Julia. That's probably about 1 million people can explain that better than me. But thank you. Let's kind of finish the flow because I think, Julia, if you push the button, we explain the flow a little bit more, right? So the idea here, the flow, Csikszentmihalyi with all of this data captured this emotional state in which we seem to learn best when we have this positive feedback in our brain. Let's see if this works. But the idea is when we find that balance between our perceived skills and competences and the level of the challenge. Oh, now we got all of them in one go. Can you go back? I think I meant to come one at a time. Julia, can you go back, or did something go? There you go. Further. There you go. Oh, now you're going too fast. Let's get the horizontal line out. There you go. Just, I mean, lots of people know this diagram, but maybe not everybody. So the point here is that the way that our brain seems to work, seems to be wired, is that if we imagine this given challenge there, the horizontal line, that's how difficult a given thing is. It could be a skiing slope, maybe down in Italy. Now, if you push once, Julia, we'll get person A. Now, if you imagine person A with that level of skills and competences, and you go up in a vertical line, you will see that A kind of hits the horizontal line outside the blue corridor. And in that moment, you are in a state of anxiousness, you're frustrated, you're over-challenged, so you have a negative response in your brain. If we push once more, Julia, we get to see B. And again, if you go up vertically from the letter B, you will see you're within the dark blue corridor there. You have a positive feedback in the brain, it feels good. You are in the flow state. You're basically having a number of brain hormones emitted that gives you this more malleable and more flexible brain, and you literally feel good. If we push once more, you have C. There's one too many. But let's just see C here, right? C is under challenge. So again, you go up in a vertical line, you hit the horizontal line outside the blue corridor. This person is basically bored. They've done this before. They're zooming out. They're not focused. Negative feedback in the brain. They look for something different. So our brains are in this way. Now push, let's hit the next one. Because what the brain really wants to do is that the brain wants to grow. So the moment you are in flow, the moment you master a given thing, your brain throws you out of flow. So that's the whatever it's called, dark green roller coaster there. The brain actually throws you out of flow so that you can grow into flow, and then out of flow so you can get into flow. And the classic example that we often use when we talk about this is basically it's like babies and toddlers. The moment they can rotate around the cord, they sit up, they can do that, they start crawling, they can do that, they start walking. Well, they stand up and then they start walking. But they never master any of these things when they begin. So they fall over, they bump into things, but the brain, keeps pushing until we master a given thing, and then we start improving on it, i.e. running, for example. But it's the same with anything, whether it's mental, whether it's cognitive or a physical skill. That's just a process the brain goes through. And that was sort of what among the things that Csikszentmihalyi managed to map out there in the 70s and in the 80s even. And the research continued in terms of what it actually did in the brain. But we all go through this all the time. And where LSP sort of ties into this is that when you start a workshop, you start a meeting, you start anything, people are distributed on that horizontal line. So the way we apply the flow theory then is we know that they're all in one way or another, they all feel like person A, they're all low on skills in one way or another. The language, speaking in groups, handling Lego bricks, the topic that they're going to talk about, they're new on the team, they're the only one of their gender on the team. For whatever reason, everyone is always person A. So it's all about learning how to design your workshop, your progress, so that each person goes through the flow corridor and are all pretty far up the corridor ready to engage with the topic. So that's sort of how we apply that into our work. Now let's try and let's go to play. Serious play is a million different theories put together. Historically, it's what Lego knew about learning and development. It's about what the professors brought in from business school. It's the constructivism and constructionism that Julia briefly mentioned. We could have spoken about all of these, but we just want to kind of take a moment on play here because it's in the name, Lego Serious Play, and when people see Lego bricks, play comes to mind. So how do we define it? Well, first of all, it's really hard to define, and it's very easy to do. And most of us, if not all of us, we still do it. As a species, we are, as a species, we are, for the ones that we know, the only ones that we know that are really wired to play during our entire life. So we all do it, but it's really hard to define. Let's go forward one more. In that sense, it's like this very famous elephant. Depending on where you're standing, it's a different thing. Depending on the perspective or the angle you're taking on it, or where you're interacting with it, play can be really a lot of different things. Let's move forward once. The way we think of it, because there's role play and there's pretend play, is really defined by these three things. So think of play here as serious play in small letters. So this is the version of play. We think of play as an intentional gathering to apply the imagination. So it's really a planned moment in time. This is real, some of the stuff that characterizes when adults are in play in organizations. It's an intentional gathering, and they know they're meeting, or we know we are meeting, in order to use our imagination, to imagine a thing. Let's one more. When we do it, we follow a specific set of rules or a specific language that we may not use in any other context. Those are like the boundaries of play. We know this from games as well, right? I mean, I love football. That's a flaw of mine. But for football to function, football isn't really purely play, but for it to function, people need to follow certain rules, right? So there's an element of rules and language that you may not use anywhere else. That forms the boundaries of the play and makes it safe. One more. And as we are doing this, we know we're exploring and we know we are experimenting. We're not actually implementing what we're doing. Right? Hence the phrase, we're playing with it. So just follow this. You will notice that by this definition, most of the work that goes on, or let's rephrase that, most of the activities that go on in organizations, knowledge-based organizations, they are play. If you think of a budget, if you think of a strategy process, they're just play, right? Because when you're budgeting, for example, you're not actually producing anything, you're not actually selling anything, you're not actually doing anything, but you're imagining what you may well produce, where you will produce it, what you're going to sell it at, the cost of it, who you're going to hire, possibly who you're going to fire. You're not actually doing any of those things. And you're following a specific language in terms of accounting that you may not use anywhere else. So all of these things are actually just play, enabling you to implement better later. So if you think of that, most of the knowledge work are actually play. So if we go back to when series play began, the idea with LEGO series play was never to bring more play to organizations. It was to bring better play to organizations. Because they were often at play, they just weren't playing well. And as Julia will show you later, LEGO actually means play well. So the whole idea there in the early 2000s was to bring, better rather than more play to organizations. Let's take a step forward. So what does it then actually do? Well, pure biology, play is a two-way street in the sense that as you play, right, your brain grows in connections. As it grows in connections, you play in a more complex manner, which makes it grow more. So it's really this notion of a two-way street in terms of brain growth. This is where Stuart Brown, who's a researcher into play, calls it a fertilizer for the brain. He actually continues by saying it's madness not to use it. Right? So we have this immense capacity in the brain for play, and it's sort of beaten out of us from an early childhood nowadays, and then it's just such a waste of resources. Let's go on one more. In terms of social, well, Pankseep here, they figure out that it doesn't depend on the size of the cortex, but it's highly socializing, and it enables us to handle conflicts, and it improves our emotional calibration a lot. There is some research on boys that are not allowed to do rough and tumble play in kindergarten. In those cases, they are less good at handling conflicts later. So they don't go through this maturing, or maturation if you want, process. There's also good signs that play helps prepare us for ambiguity, right? And everybody loves to talk about a VUCA world, and I think Corona the last 12, 15 months have shown to us that it's truly an ambiguous world. And we've got this power to use play that enables us or prepares us for such ambiguity. Let's go one more. And then it's just this notion of the learning and development here in the brain that, we test, we rehearse, and we hone. That's what we do when we play. We test and we rehearse and we hone our skills. So it's another angle of this impact that it has on the brain cognitively and emotionally, developing new knowledge, but also having this preparedness for ambiguity, I hate to say more precise implementation, but a more heedful implementation and execution afterwards. Yeah, I think brings me to the sort of the final one or two slides here. So this is kind of just to tie the play and the flow back to the constructionism that Julia mentioned, this notion of that it's all about making knowledge by making things. So when we do LEGO series play and the cases or the applications that Julia is going to mention in a second, it's all about moving from what we know. As humans, we know a fraction. As humans, we're consciously aware of a fraction of what we really know, and so those 5 to 10% are great. A great way to communicate those are PowerPoints. But what we want to do is get people in flow, use the play, and then use the hands to go into the lower part of the triangle where they realize what they know, and they construct new knowledge, basically coming down to that. So the whole idea here from a values perspective is that we believe in Lego serious play that people know more than they know, and the theories and the practical application of them, as mentioned, is what enables us to go into that lower part of the triangle and become more aware of what we know and to develop these new connections in the brain. So we actually develop new knowledge as well. Yeah. There you go. So in short, or the definition we typically apply is that serious play is really a technique, method, or a language without content. So it's a language we speak in order to think better and communicate better. And this language helps unlock the full potential of everyone. Again, assuming or believing, in supported by theory, that triangle that you saw before, there's a huge untapped potential that can be unlocked in each and in the collective. And that's really how it was born initially, some 20 years ago, inside Lego, the desire from the owner of Lego to unlock that potential. I think that was it. There you go. Julia.
Thanks, Per. Thanks, Per, for this introduction, very useful for all of our participants. And now let's go to the applications of Lego serious play method in this field of qualitative market research. I'm a qualitative researcher since many years. I don't tell you how long, but I immediately saw something interesting from this method, and I have to thank all the facilitators who initiated me to this method: Fabrizio Paracco, Rachele Soliera, Simone Orlandi, Paola Santoro. All of them gave me some inputs that I could understand how to use this fantastic method for both business and consumer areas. So I decided to get certificated. This is me in February 2020. So it's not a long time ago, and especially it was before everything bad started. So since then I could experiment via online with interviews, mini groups, mini workshops, and I really hope to start again meeting people in real life. I want to also underline the value of Lego serious play community, and I would say that it is very similar to the ICG community, since in both communities I found this approach and attitude in sharing knowledge, giving support one each other. So this kind of generous networking idea is not so easy to find. So I really appreciate and thank again both of you associations. So as qualitative market researcher, we have a mission. Our mission is to take a deeper dive, get under the skin, explore the unrevealed, and we do this with a variety of techniques. We use visualization, the collage, free associations, brainstorming, projective techniques, and so many others. And it happens, as you can confirm, that sometimes not all the participants are equally engaged or have the possibility or the right time to give their own opinions. We all know the leader behavior or the shy and hidden respondents. Think also about teens, for example. They not always are able to express their opinions since their identity is not yet defined, and they often do not have clear ideas about what they think about different topics or themes. And sometimes also creativity and the imagination of participants can be not well shown. Here we have this method, Lego serious play method, helping us to use our hands in discovering what is inside us, what is unconscious, and that can be brought to the rational part, as Per was saying. So the hand knowledge, we know more than what we think we know. And when our hands are used in learning, a complicated process takes place. And these generate a powerful emotional charge, and in fact, tactile activities fire brain cells. So what is fantastic is that using both ends, the two hemispheres are simulated as it happens when we play. So the left hemisphere, the one that oversees logical activities more involved in our work routine, works together with the right hemisphere, the one that concerns the creativity and the imagination. Can you imagine what can be discovered and what can we get from this process? This is a method to think, communicate, and solving problems as an individual and also as a group, using bricks and elements of Lego. So it is possible to activate the divergent thinking, communication, deep analysis in solving concrete problems. Here on the right side, I have summarized the main advantages of using this method. The first one is the guarantee of having 100% participation, thanks to the individual model building, which facilitates everyone's participation in a very playful way, no matter the age or the nationality. It is a really democratic process. Second point, it ensures new perspectives, a new way of evaluating a question. Point two, builds trust in people, since people get to know each other along the process, and they create a trustful relationship among them. Can you imagine the result in organizations, how useful this is? In point four, it gets to the core values and fundamental principles. It also produces an authentic self-expression, creates a common language, clarifies the complexity, so it makes all easier to understand thanks to the visibility and tangibility of the models. It ensures alignment of the group. All are equally respected for their opinions and beliefs. Provides memorable results. These are models, visible models. These are in 3D, three dimensions. So they are imprinted in memory. And it saves time. I would like to talk a little bit about the process of Lego Serious Play. It depends on the target, the time available, the objectives, and we can organize workshops from 2 to 3 days long, 2 hours to 2 to 3 days long, depending on the complexity of the issue to be sorted out. Workshops can happen also simultaneously, so more facilitators at the same time for workshops with C8 respondents. And the interesting thing is that we have to follow a precise process that is well learned during the training that we had with Lego Serious Play master trainers. So we have to understand how to pose questions, the challenge, and depending on the complexity, again, the number of questions are defined. So the question should have no obvious or correct solution. It has to be clear and concise, so to allow all the participants to connect with it. Second point is building the model individually. So there is a time given for this task, and it varies for a couple of minutes up to 10-15 minutes, depending again on the complexity of the challenge. And here the participants make sense of what they know and what they can imagine. They construct a model using Lego materials, and they develop a story covering the meaning of the three-dimension model. And through this process, they construct a new knowledge in their mind. Some small skill building exercises are taken in the beginning, so to get all familiar with the bricks. The third point is share the meaning, the famous storytelling, so important for all of us, and involving who is telling and who is listening. So bricks are used to build metaphors, actual models of concepts and ideas, which becomes concrete and are easy to illustrate. It is incredible how every little piece of the model makes sense. And it is difficult to ask participants to destroy it since they feel so attached to their model they have created so spontaneously, apparently, but coming from their experience and what they perceive and the way they give sense to their work. And then the 7 application techniques. Each of them is based on mastering the previous one or once. The higher applications can address increasingly complex problems. So let's see some, as you see, many applications related to the business and consumer areas. Starting from the business areas, we see that all these applications have a basis. The basis is that each of us, before being an employee, a professional manager, or whatever, is a person with dreams, desires, and Lego Serious Play allows to reach the unconscious and bring out the best in people. So in groups, this method allows everyone the equal participation, as we have seen, with the total involvement. So to enhance the human capital. And with bricks, it is possible to bring to the surface skills and potentialities that can be immediately put into play within the company. So we can value the hidden or dormant skills of the staff and make the difference in making the internal organization more efficient and increasing the competitiveness. So here we are with some examples that I would like to share with you. The first one was with an employee who wanted to understand better her talents, vocations, and understand how to direct her career, which kind of steps she could take based on what could be developed in her future. This is very useful when we partner also with the HR managers that need to better understand people also in the moment of recruiting people for the companies. Another example is business development. Think about startup companies or companies who need to understand better their corporate identity or understand their unique value proposition. This is another way to use these methods, and involving the main stakeholders, we can understand the vision and give ideas of short and long-term objectives that can be immediately visualized thanks to the models they can create themselves. Another example is related to the organizational development. So we always start with the individual, single individualities, so to understand each skills, the skills of each of the participants, the potentialities, and then in group, it is possible to work together and verify what it can be done as individual, as in a group. So everything is useful to create a real team working together in an effective way. When we talk about consumers, we can understand the point of view of consumers as per the company, product, services, or in their relationship with the product that we are going to study. So these areas are, for example, the brand company. We try to understand how the brand is perceived, positioned, compared with competitors, and how future scenarios can be imagined. And as per product services, it is possible to well visualize in a concrete way, thanks to the bricks, the different aspects of the points of satisfaction, for example, as well as all the pain points or tensions that our clients are always looking for. So we can also imagine new products or services to be developed in great details, and also new ideas about how to communicate or how to build a new website or app, for example. Let's see some examples here. Talking about the brand company, when the client asks for the deep analysis of the perception of competitive landscapes from the consumer's point of view, it comes immediately clear what are the main characteristics of each competitor, its point of strength, the weaknesses, the threats, the opportunities, and each single model is able to bring to life the consumer's perceptions. Another example is related to the new development, new ideas about products, services, store layouts, and so on. Here, LEGO Serious Play becomes really useful to help understand the desires and the needs of the individuals, starting from who they are and what can be creatively implemented. For example, we did the research combining qualitative research in the LEGO Serious Play, where people were invited to visit a big department store. It was a client on cosmetics, and they had to spend their time inside this store, department store, analyzing all the layout of the area dedicated to that specific brand. Then they were invited to participate to the workshop with LEGO Serious Play. We had 2 tables with 8 respondents in each, that after having seen the real layout of the store, they could imagine the future of that layout for that brand, starting from their desires, but considering also the peculiarity of the brand identity, and the brand image they have in mind. Another interesting application is related to the consumer journey. And pharma companies are very interested in understanding better also the patient journey. So they are really very related one each other, because through the models that we can have created by the participants, we can define a kind of map where all the touch points and the main steps and channels are really evident and announced. Here we can see also the situation, for example, talking about the patient, we can see how they perceive the moment of the symptoms, the perception of the diagnosis, the relationship with the physician, for example, up to the therapy to be taken and the related emotions. Think also about the moment of a possible recovery or cure, remission, the maintenance, up to the possible relapse and all the main gaps and opportunities that can be identified. So all these information are very useful to improve the relationship with the patient in every single step, and to improve and make it better the experience that the patients can do with all the system, the healthcare system. I would like to give you as colleagues an idea of how results can be obtained. The results are visible and immediately understood, since they are tangible, concrete, and the participants have built them in a collaborative way, step by step. So it is a ready-to-use results that clients are always surprised and amazed about what is possible to obtain using bricks and having people working around them and creating step by step all the different meaning, metaphors, storytelling that can be shared in the group. So let's see if it goes ahead. I just wanted to take a bit because of the last it's too heavy document, so it takes time for the next slide. As soon as it appears, it's about why joining an LSP facilitator training. As per my experience, I have learned a new method for my toolbox. I have learned when and how to use it, to whom to propose this method, how to pose powerful questions, how to follow the core process for each question to ask, how to decide when to use the 7 application techniques based on complexity of the objective. I'm trying to go ahead, but it's not answering me. And the important difference between moderating and facilitating, because it's a totally different attitude and skill that needed to be experienced and practiced.
Julie, I'm just wondering if you could come out of full screen mode and then move it on using the full application.
Let me see. I can. So to go out. Don't know how to. Okay, here we are. So it is the list of the reasons why I decided to join Lego Serious Play Facilitator Training. You can see what I have already explained you, and the last thing is not least important is to become part of this very active and collaborative community. Just to end with this project, along with Simone Orlandi and Antonia Colasante, both expert LSP certified facilitators, we have thought to create this LinkedIn page. I invite you all to visit and decide if join or not, because we started with the idea of playful storming as a way to look at qualitative research from a different angle, bringing new energy to it. So the idea is the cross-fertilization, combining methodologies and techniques from qualitative research and insight generation with the co-design tools. And the aim is to stimulate the co-creation of business opportunities in partnership with other professionals, supporting people and organizations to discover their business superpowers. So this is a project that is just born and needed to be fed and cared. So let's see how it will proceed. So that's all from our side. We thank you so much, and we can find our contacts here. Thank you for your attention, and we invite you to start playing seriously. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Julie and Per. So I'm just wondering, I think we've got a couple of questions in the chat box, but is there anybody else on webcam who has a question they would like to ask?
I have a question.
So that's Jayan. Yes, Jayan, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, yeah, I've been following Lego Serious Play, and I know it's very powerful. Now, once the pandemic has set in, and no more, all that social distancing and isolation. We cannot touch people. We cannot go. No physical training happening. And maybe in the recent past, we see a lot of online facilitation training programs have started. Now, I just wanted to find out, since the expert, the father of Lego Serious Play is right in front, that's Spur. So I just wanted to find out, there's a group of people who supports an online facilitation, certification, and there is a group of people who believes in physical. Anyway, I believe in a physical. I just wanted to know what is the difference? How different will it be?
Oh, thank you. Immensely different. Now, I actually don't think that this is, and I'm not certain if you're asking it as a yes/no question either, or as a binary question. Now, it's huge. The difference is huge. I think the analogy that came to me recently when I was asked a similar question, it was food. Now, the point I made was, I really like a good burger. I really do. Now, I also really like a super 5-course molecular dinner that takes hours. They're very different.
Yeah.
They serve very different needs. And I think the really important thing is not to confuse the two.
Sure.
One is really fast, and it does the trick, and it can be made really well. A good burger takes a lot of hard work and craft and good quality raw material, but remains a burger.
Right.
It can also be a really crappy junk food burger. So I think my analogy here is that I really think you can do fantastic things remotely. I really also think that there are certain things, at least when we speak serious play, I'd rather not go into other techniques because I know even less of those. But I also think there are certain things in Lego serious play where we need to be in the same room. Now, there are some very practical reasons for it, like actually literally building together. This notion of playing emergence where the collective is interacting. There's lots of brain and biology about the tactile experience and being able to read each other as it reach, and sort of reading each other, right? So I think it's not either or. The experience. Yeah.
I said, see, this entire concept, the process itself starts with constructive vision, hand and brain connection. We talk about not 20/80, but 100/100 training.
Yep.
Now, how that can happen virtually? Number one, can I learn swimming virtually? No.
I don't know if you can. I couldn't. I think there's a difference here. Man. No,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, all of you, because maybe this question might sound real foolish, but since Per is there and you all are there very experienced, so I thought that I'll pose this question because many advertisement and many posting that comes joining into a online. Some people they say that it's no more 4 days, it can be 3 days, and since Per is there and since I treat him as a mentor, I keep following like an FBI agent. I follow every post of his. I see everything that's happening with him. I love it. In fact, I follow maybe the rest of them. Yeah.
Can I interrupt? We've only got a few minutes left, and I know several other people have got questions.
Okay,
so can I suggest that you carry on a dialogue with Per afterwards? I'm sure he'd be willing to take other questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but just so that other people have got an opportunity to talk to. I know that Kath had another question that was related to that. So is it possible to do this online by each having our own Lego, for example? Is that something that you've tried? Does it work?
That for me as well, I think maybe. I mean, the short answer is yes, right? I think the long answer is don't confuse the Lego brick with the Lego serious play method. Not everything that's where you have Lego in front of you is Lego serious play. Just like having a brush in your hand doesn't make you do calligraphy. So to Kath, it's a yes and, right? not every conversation over Zoom is a coaching conversation either, right? So the point is, you can certainly do Lego serious play remotely or online, but having Lego bricks doesn't make something Lego serious play, and it's a little bit that distinction, I think, that might be important here, if that's sufficiently unclear.
Okay, Peter, I think you've got a question you'd like to ask.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is a question for Julia. So this is about doing market research, which I do. Per will also tell you that I have a long history with LSP. But Julia, this question is for you. This question is about budgets. I know you hit the budget question all the time when you're trying to do market research. As researchers, we would love to gather as much information as possible. Our clients will tell us you only have this much money. So the question is, how do you reconcile the costs of time and incentives for respondents and finding space and all that with the insights that are possible with Lego Serious Play? Yes, I understand that there might be additional levels of insight that you can get to, but clients will say, I'm not sure we need to get there. We only have this much budget. How do you deal with that problem?
That's a great question, and I know that we are all worried, and we all think about the issue, about the budget. So far, I have used this method with the clients that know me very well. Yeah. So they know the level of quality that I can provide. They know that if I proposed them this method, it was because it was valid and able to give them the right questions to them. It's always difficult to give costs because as you know, it depends on the complexity, on the target, on the country, because I sometimes do also coordination around the world for projects, especially with pharma projects. But it really depends on too many issues. I really recommend you all to start with people you know, people who trust you, because in this way you can definitely let Lego Serious Play entering in the world of market research and having clients understanding and trusting since the beginning. Otherwise, talking about the bricks, it can create some hilarity or not a seriously taken topic. So this is what I recommend, and with your clients, you can find the best budget, knowing them directly and considering that the main costs are for the material to be bought and the course to be taken, but then everything you're repaid because you use it more and more, and the clients become knowledge about what they can get from this method. Mm-hmm. Does it reply your question, Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
Julia, I have another question which is probably linked to this. So somebody has asked, Ine has asked, in your experience, how long do consumer groups last when you base them on LSP? For example, a brand identity group, for example, what sort of length of workshop or group would be required for something like that, which obviously will impact on how much incentives and time you need to spend on it?
So these kind of workshops can last from 2 hours onwards. So I generally suggest to conduct, to facilitate 2 or 3 hour workshops in order to have great results from the respondents. Incentives are more or less the same as we give normally in our groups, and the cost is mainly for the facility, or when you do it online, as I did on some projects, we have to consider the time to also help respondents to be engaged, so to take pictures of their models, to send them to me, and then to have them on a Miro whiteboard, and that kind of logistic and practical things to do.
Okay, and another question sort of related to that as well. How many people will typically handle a single group? So is it just a moderator? Do you have a scribe, a note taker? Are there other certified facilitators? How many people would be involved in a typical workshop?
In number of respondents is like a typical focus group, 6-8 people in each workshop, one facilitator per each group, and we can conduct 2, 3, 4 groups at the same time, having different facilitators, one per each workshop, one per each table. Then it's very useful to have the note taker, because it's nice to have notes ready at the end of the group, of the workshop. Remind that the respondents do the hard job. They write, they create meaning, and we are very facilitated at the end with these ready-to-use results that are there on the table, as you've seen in my previous pictures.
Okay, we're almost out of time, I'm afraid. So if there's anybody has a last question that they would like to ask.
Sure. Get in touch with Per and with me if you need more information. Happy to be with you.
Okay, I've got another question here. How many questions would you ask to participants in one workshop? So how many models would they typically create?
Again, it's a question of complexity, and it could be 4 or 5 questions or even more. It depends also on the length of the workshop, considering a 2 hours group or one day workshop. It's totally different. So it really depends.
Okay, that's wonderful. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much indeed to both Per and Julia for your time today. It's been really enlightening, very interesting, and a fun webinar this time. And thank you to everyone for logging in today. Do come back and join us for our next webinar, which will be on the 13th of January, when we'll be spending some time thinking about New Year's resolutions for managing your social media. So do come back and join us for that. Otherwise, it's time to say goodbye, everyone, and have a great afternoon. And do come back and join us next time. Bye all.
Bye-bye. Bye all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.